to the Daily Exchange. I'm here with Dave Chapman from OSL, and we're talking about stablecoins and everything else that's going on in the market. We'll see you guys right after this. All right, guys, we're back. We're here with Dave Chapman. He is the chairman of OSL, the largest digital asset brokerage in all of Asia.
Correct.
He is the man when it comes to trading them bitcoins.
Thanks for having me today,
Welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
We're talking about all sorts of things right now. Market's down at 193. Just in terms of prices, Bitcoin trading at 6,360, Ethereum at $198, just under $200. Ripple at 27 cents. EOS tickling up above $5.05. We've been going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Here's the big question, Dave. Are we going to drop below the low of $5,800?
I think the market's still pretty, the sentiment's still pretty bearish. But me personally, I don't think we're going to go below the year low of 5,800. I think we'll probably see a correction and probably have a highlight to the year end, much in the same way as we did last year.
Yeah. Picking up for a big end of year party, the Bitcoin party. I love a Bitcoin party. Can you invite me? Apparently, but right now, what's going on? We've got a Bart Simpson formation. Joel, you want to bring this up? We've got the Bart Simpson, and apparently people, if they knew it was underneath this table, you could imagine I'd be wearing shorts. We have the pattern forming. What do you think of that pattern? That's a unique crypto pattern, really.
I see it a lot. I see it a lot on Reddit. I see it a lot on the forums and so on. The Bart Simpson technical analysis. It's a pretty mean technical indicator.
So obviously, you know, these sharp spikes up and down. It's pretty. What do you think's causing that, Dave? You got any ideas?
It's volatility, mate.
Volatility.
You've got to remember the market that we're trading.
Volatility, baby. All right. The resulting pattern, obviously, is quite unique to cryptocurrency at this current stage. And apparently, people can go ahead and eat my Bitcoin shorts.
It's a good one, mate. It's original.
Moving on. Ethereum. Ethereum is still trickling under that $200 mark. We'll just bring up the shorts right now of Ethereum have started to go back down a little bit. So people are getting back on the Ethereum train.
Definitely.
What's your view on Ethereum long term?
Mate, it's lost 90% of its market. It's whilst it's lost 90% of its value, it's still the second largest crypto by market cap. So I think it still has that that brand perception. I know that. Vitalik has come out recently and saying that that we've hit the ceiling in terms of the blockchain space. The interesting thing with Ethereum is you've got a lot of new blockchain protocols that are coming on the scene, such as EOS. I mean, there's a lot of people saying that there's better, faster blockchains than Ethereum, but you have to remember that Ethereum said that about Bitcoin as well. And what we're seeing with Bitcoin is it remains the daddy of crypto. It was the first. It's been battle hardened. It hasn't had the same types of security flaws that we've seen over the years in Ethereum. That being said, I think Ethereum still has a very good brand. But I mean, a lot of people now. We saw the Bitcoin's dominance as plus 50%. We haven't seen that in a very long time. So a lot of people are still going back to Bitcoin when they get skittish. Lots
of developers are still working on Ethereum. Moving on, I guess, let's talk about EOS, like you were saying before. Some news out today, the cost of a new account down by 25%. They're saying the CoinDesk is estimating it to be $1.84 to create a new account.
Okay.
That's pretty pricey, right? It's $0 to get an Ethereum wallet, $0 to get a Bitcoin wallet, pretty much, right?
Yep.
And it's still, what do you think about that? Do you think it's cheap enough?
I mean, specifically around EOS, it's still a protocol that's still being developed. And we saw its pilot earlier this year. It looks like it's going well. They're probably the most funded organization in terms of being an ICO. I believe they raised $4 billion. In other news, though, we saw EOS is now supported on the Ledger hardware wallet. So that's pretty huge.
That is a big deal. A big deal. Welcome EOS to the Ledger wallet. On DApp Radar, we're just checking in here. We looked at this the other day. Just under 9,000 accounts using EOS now in the past 24 hours, which is kind of cool. Generating over 65,000 transactions worth about 600,000 EOS. So these projects, we've got PRA Candy Box, EOS Knights, and EOS Bet leading the charge. This DEX EOS will be interesting as well when a decentralized exchange launches on EOS.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people working on the decentralized exchange protocols right now, and I think that's probably one level of maturity that we'll see in this space. I mean, there's two real ways that I see it going. One is the decentralized exchange route, and then you've also got the regulatory route. And right now, I mean, since inception, a lot of the exchanges have been in this limbo where we've seen continual failures of exchanges. We've seen people lose their money. But I think what's happening now, it's going to split in two ways. Either you can go the decentralized route, where you hold your own private keys, you don't have to rely on a centralized exchange, or you'll go to the regulatory route, where people are licensed and they're well capitalized and there's consumer protection in place.
Yeah. Moving on, let's talk about Stellar. They have announced they are Lightyear.io, a startup building on Stellar Protocol, has overnight announced that it is now acquiring Chain, which has had $40 million of funding from companies like Visa and NASDAQ, and they're obviously building financial services for these organizations. The Stellar Protocol's co-founder Jed McCaleb will be the Interstellar's CTO.
Sure.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yep, Jed McCaleb was founder of Ripple. Obviously, some events happened a few years ago, and he spun up Stellar. But I mean, I think a lot of people now are still in that acquisition space. I mean, the market is still very buoyant, and people are looking at any strategic advantage they can gain.
Totally. Stellar's making a bit of news these days. Price hasn't really moved, but there's definitely been news. This is not financial advice, by the way. We don't do financial advice on this show at all.
Definitely
Nothing to do with financial advice. Neither Dave nor I nor anyone in this show or environment has anything to do with financial advice. These are just our opinions.
Correct.
XRP, not Ripple. XRP and Ripple, by the way, are completely different. They are completely different entities. Just another thing we have to note on this show. CTO at Ripple, Jed, also did a recent talk at Crypto Finance Conference held in California. And he noted that Stellar has some overlaps with the technology of Ripple and also Visa. But he doesn't consider Stellar to be an outright competitor to those as they have different focuses. What's your view on Ripple? Stellar. XRP.
I mean, Stellar naturally will share some similarities, given that Jed McCaleb was affiliated with both of those initiatives. I mean, Ripple is an extremely well-funded organization. Ripple trying to disrupt the SWIFT payment networks and with a number of initiatives. I think we're still yet to see whether or not they're going to be able to disrupt an organization as old as the SWIFT network.
100%. I don't know how we're doing this, but we're talking about Dogecoin. It's just got to happen. Much gains. Up 20%, my man.
Indeed. So
20%.
That's words that I thought I'd never hear you say, to be honest.
Neither did I.
So.
Neither did I, but apparently you never know your luck.
What's the fundamentals?
You never know your luck on the daily exchange.
What's the fundamentals for Doge going up 20%?
Well,
Fred?
apparently, don't get me started,
okay.
Dave. What are the fundamentals? Joel, what are the fundamentals behind Dogecoin?
Look, I want to tell you.
He wants to tell us.
Great.
But he's not sure. I understand as well. And I think just as much as Dave and I are in such a Doge Ethereum, the Doge Ethereum bridge has had a successful demo, apparently.
Wow. News to me.
And apparently the Dogecoin is actually, but it's got a large number of wallet activity relatively to all other cryptocurrencies in the top 400. It's actually a very used coin.
I mean, over the years, it's always been seen as that sort of community-driven, fun cryptocurrency to have. I mean, people will vouch for it and people will fight for it and say that this is the future.
Yeah.
I probably don't share that same sentiment.
I don't think it's about that. I just think it's like that place where, it's like that bar that everyone goes after the way late in the night, but
Sure.
that bar stays alive and it keeps going and going and going.
It sells kebabs and all
Yeah,
that
it's
sort of
got a
thing.
kebab store next door, it has that last drink about town,
Yeah, you have fun there, right?
Yeah, that's Dogecoin.
Right, okay, all right, fair enough.
I reckon it'll always be there. I think it's going to be my one. I don't know if I would buy it, but sorry, that's not financial advice either. Nexo have been announcing quite a few things, I believe, on this crypto cruise that's going around town right now.
Yep.
Joel, if you want to bring up the announcements that Nexo have been putting out there. 40 new fiat currencies. This is about lending. No more waiting for USD. Serving 200 jurisdictions. Minimum loan now is $100. 10 new collaterals, and some patents filed, making Nexo the #1 lender. Wow.
It's interesting that in that announcement, I don't see anything about it being audited. Anything about transparency. I mean, I think it's great. If the product works, fantastic. But what I'd be most keen in is understanding what consumer protection is available. Given the continual failure around some of these products, that'd be the first thing I'd want to know.
Consumer protection. I like that. I like that a lot, Dave. Helping people out there, protecting them. Are you a protector by nature, personality-wise?
I value risk, compliance, and security a lot.
Risk, compliance, and security. I'm like, you sprinkle a little bit of that over me. OSL. Dave is with us today. We're going to talk about Dave. We've got some ideas to talk about. And you were the former managing director and currently the executive chairman of OSL, the largest digital asset brokerage in Asia Pacific. And you guys were the title sponsor at New York Consensus.
Correct. Yeah, it was an amazing event, by the way. 8,500 attendees. It was awesome.
Incredible.
And every year that event keeps getting bigger and bigger. I think last year there was like around maybe 2,500 2,500 attendees. So I mean, to go from 2.5 to 8.5 in the space of 12 months is amazing.
CNBC, you were quoted there saying that the Bitcoin ETF was very close.
Yep.
What do you think about the September 30 decision? How do you think it's going to play out?
Sure. I mean, I guess some people could say that I was optimistic. I think it was back in March when I was pretty bullish on there being an ETF coming into this space before the end of the year. I think what we've seen is a large amount of progress. I mean, I think there was 20 ETFs that were pending approval. I think, given where the SEC stance has been currently in terms of kicking it down the road, delaying it, having more time to review the ETF submissions and to make sure that there is, the necessary controls in place. I mean, I think the latest that I've been been paying attention to is I think it's probably going to get kicked out to March next year. I think, from my understanding, if I'm to believe what I've read correctly, I believe that will be the last time that they can delay the submissions.
Wow. March next year.
So I was wrong.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Is Dave wrong? We'll see. We will see.
Yeah.
We will see. It is not clear
We're
yet.
70% through the year, so
30% chance Dave's right, 70% he is wrong. All right. Let's talk about Backed. Appealing, obviously, to institutional investors. Do you think it's going to bring a new bull market in November?
I think it's showing the level of maturity that's rising. I mean, you've got the Intercontinental Exchange and Microsoft, aligning together to create an institutional exchange. I mean, in the space that we've been around since the Mt. Gox days, where a lot of people lost their money, into where we're going now. I mean, providing an avenue and an institutional option, which has the backing of the parent company of NYSE and has a technology provider like Microsoft. I mean, that's a pretty bullish news to me.
So let's move on, I guess, in terms of talking about, you guys use some really fancy tools. You guys did an announcement and a partnership with Caspian,
yep.
Where you're trading sort of securities, exotic equities. Joel, do you like exotic equities?
Yes.
Joel likes exotic
That's
equities.
good for Joel.
Derivatives, physical commodities, and FX. Tell us about that. You guys... using some cool tools. Tell us about that. Tell us about the partnership.
Yeah, I mean, so we're trialing the Caspian product. We are looking into it. I mean, it's another one of these options available for institutional traders. At OSL, we have a 24/7 trading desk. The traders are all from traditional financial backgrounds, such as Hang Seng, Point72, SocGen, Morgan Stanley, whatnot. I mean, for us, our core business is doing OTC trades, facilitating very large buy and sell transactions for the institutional flow. In terms of the type of tools we use, I mean, we subscribe to Bloomberg terminals. We subscribe to some market data feeds. We internalize that data. I mean, also one of the differences between a brokerage like ourselves and a more traditional financial brokerage is that we can actually analyze the public blockchains and see what's going on, to actually see where are things moving, what's going on in the market. So there is an added advantage in having this transparent ledger. I mean, we can use that to our advantage.
Totally.
Yeah.
So Caspian sounds pretty cool, but it's definitely a one of those tools that's trying to sort of standardize that institutional industry.
Yeah, I mean,
and what's your view in terms of more institutions coming into this space in terms of some of the bigger trading desks?
Sure. I mean, if we take a look at traditional finance, I mean, if you look at investment banks and traditional brokerage firms, you could say potentially they might not like this asset class, but what we're finding now is they've acknowledged the fact that it's not going away. And if they've acknowledged the fact that it's not going away, well, then the next question is, okay, well, how do we make money? How do we get a piece of this cake, and how do we get this first mover advantage? And so I think there's a lot of groundwork going behind the scenes in a lot of these traditional financial institutions. They're talking to their legal teams, they're talking to their compliance team, but also even from a custody perspective. I mean, you don't have yet a traditional crypto custodian at an institutional level. You don't have a State Street that's doing crypto custodian.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been numerous news releases. You've got Nomura, who have partnered with someone recently to do a proof of concept and whatnot. And I think that'll definitely mature in the space, but it's all positive. I mean, traditional finance coming to the space,
do you feel
I welcome
that
it.
more institutions coming in will be positive for the space?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, contrary to your contrary to a lot of people in the crypto space that think this is bad, I'm on the other side of the fence, and I think it's actually very positive.
Great. ANX is a company that you founded as well, a fintech company using the blockchain. Obviously, tell us about ANX. So it's really exchange technology.
Yeah, I mean,
what's it doing?
Yeah, sure. So my background was investment banking and technology. I moved to Hong Kong with HSBC in 2010. And it was in 2012 that I discovered Bitcoin. And in 2000, by the start half of 2013, I realized that this is what I wanted to spend my career doing. I fully believed in the public ledger technology that is Bitcoin. And as a result, myself and my co-founders Hugh Madden and Ken Lowe, we left our traditional careers in banking and finance and whatnot to go and start a company called ANX International. And so we started a Bitcoin exchange, and then the company really matured into blockchain technology, where we actually lease our technology stack, our cloud offering. So other people could operate exchanges, and they could use it for other use cases, and so on. And so that business flourished and became quite a success.
It's fantastic. And let's talk about crypto lending platforms. Obviously, we talked about Nexo earlier in the show. We've got Lending Block, obviously, is another institutional platform. What's your sort of views on lending and lending coins within the space?
It's probably definitely a service that's needed. Like I said, probably to reiterate what I said before, just a little cautious as to, are these the people, are they the right operators? Are they financially backed? Are they regulated? What consumer protection is in place? But I mean, it's definitely a service that the market wants, and competition is always good. I mean, we've seen a number of lending services that, compared to traditional finance, charge an extremely high interest rate. But I think as more and more enter this field, obviously, it will become more competitive, and that's healthy for everyone.
Do you think lending in terms of with cryptocurrency will make it even more volatile?
Personally, I'm not an economist, and obviously this industry is volatile by nature, and it's very, very skittish. I mean, a lot of things can influence an immediate price increase or decrease. So, I mean, watch this space would probably be the scapegoat answer that I have right now, Fred.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You never know your luck in a lending economy. Let's talk about some trends right now. What are your sort of views in the future of protocols? Who do you think is going to win?
In terms of public blockchain protocols?
Yeah.
I don't think it's any surprise for me to say that I'm still very bullish on Bitcoin. I mean, it's the original, it's battle hardened, it's proven, and as we can see, last year a lot of people thought that there was going to be a flippening between Bitcoin and Ethereum, and right now with Bitcoin's dominance over 50%, it's proven pretty reliable that when people get a little bit nervous, I mean, they run back to Bitcoin. So I mean, is it going to be the number one protocol forever? I'm probably not that confident. Probably near term for the next 3 to 5 years, I'd still say that Bitcoin's going to be definitely if not the main, main contender by market cap, they're definitely top 5.
Security tokens are talked about a lot right now.
They are.
Do you think there's going to be an exchange soon that'll be able to trade them?
So, I mean, the days of ICOs, I think we raised in ICOs, I think it was only 300 million in August, whereas in the first 3 months of this year, though, I think you're somewhere around $3 billion. So the heat is definitely has been taken out of the ICO sales. I think probably we're, again, hitting a level of maturity where these utility tokens aren't favored. And what people are really looking for is they actually want a security token. They want to see the equity in what they're buying. I think right now there are a number of actual ventures that are doing a very good job of making sure that it is only offered to professional investors and that they're ticking all the right boxes to have a security token. The problem that probably what you were alluding to, Fred, is that there isn't anywhere. There's no secondary markets yet. And so there's a lot of people that are trying to solve that problem. And I think that we will find, I'm pretty confident. I'm thinking about my ETF claim back in March. So
well, you never know.
Before I say anything, which will end up in my face again. I mean,
our journalists here are deadly with their research.
I think
the little internet key fingers creep into every crevice.
Rather than put a date on it.
Why not? Why not, Dave?
Rather than put a date on it, I think that when we will see a secondary market for security tokens imminently. So you can imminently. You can.
Is that within the next 6 months?
Yeah. Okay, I'll do it. Next 6 months, you'll see a regulated exchange offering
himself,
security tokens.
Next 6 months, we'll have security tokens. Get your tokens ready. Let's move on a bit. Talking about the value of Bitcoin, there's been a recent article come out by Hacker Moon in terms of the state of Bitcoin. It's a very big piece. Put together by Taylor Pearson and Gary Basin, and they talk about a lot of valuation techniques. Things like network value to transaction ratio, network value to Metcalfe ratio, Bitcoin dominance, sentiment, Bitfinex longs and shorts, CBOE futures commitment of traders. Are there any sort of particular metrics or things you look at in terms of where the market's going?
I mean, at OSL, obviously, I can see where the market is going with the type and the volume and the direction of the flow that we get at OSL. But I mean, in terms of having some sort of calculation or analysis or indicator that would attempt to say this is the real value of Bitcoin or this is what's happening in the state of the crypto. I mean, you got to realize this sector is still so new. I mean, technical analysis itself on a chart which is less than a decade old, you could argue how strong those merits are.
Totally. Well, obviously, internal flow, I guess, would be fantastic metric. I'm not sure if there's a way to publish that or if that would be legal at all. Watch this space. Look out. In terms of, you said previously, and I'll quote, just 10% of the 2,000 or so coins out there are worth investing in. Do you want to tell us which of the 10% of coins are worth investing in? No.
At the risk of that being
financial advice.
Financial advice.
This is completely Dave's opinion.
I'll definitely not.
But what do you look for in a coin?
So if we're talking about an ICO, I mean, you look at the amount of ICOs that we saw last year, and we look at the valuation of a lot of these projects. I mean, I think a lot of people got drunk on the idea that they were going to, 30x their investment in a very short period of time. I do think that a lot of people weren't interested in knowing what they were actually buying. It was more so they were looking at, how much hype is around it, how many senior advisors do they have on their team, and so on. I think, this correction is actually healthy. I mean, it's now people expect a lot higher quality of an offering of a product before they're willing to invest. And so when I look at an ICO, one, I'd be looking at what is it that they're actually building, and have they started yet? Have they got a minimum viable product? What's their competition?
Yep.
What's their right to win? Who is the team and what's their experience?
I like the way you put that. What's their right to win?
Definitely. I mean, you look at the amount of competing projects in this space right now. I mean, it's insane. I mean, and so when someone comes up with the 8th next cloud providing blockchain technology, it's sort of, you've got to look at the space and say, okay, one, look at the competition, and secondly, why is this going to be better than Dropbox, or why is it going to be better than what's already out there today? Just because you're adding the word blockchain and you're inserting some DLT, I mean, you have to ask yourself, is there really a right to win?
Totally. In terms of regulation right now, what's your sort of view in terms of regulation with ICOs? Where do you think that should go? Because a lot of people are like, should we have with SAFTs and safes and rates and all these new sort of things? Where would you like the market to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think, contrary to a lot of other people in this space, I'm pretty pro-regulation. I think it is needed in this space. When it comes to some of the ICOs that we saw this year, I mean, the fact of the matter is that they were using the excuse, well, because ICOs aren't regulated, I'm allowed to offer a product that looks, smells, and feels like a security. Whereas the regulators are like, you know what? Whether it's a collective investment scheme that you've written on the back of a napkin, if it represents a security, well, you need to oblige by securities regulations.
Yep.
And we saw that take effect. We saw people get fined. We saw people get stopped at airports and taken to jail. So I think that that level of sort of control or regulation, I think it's going to provide better clarity. And I think we'll see, in a lot of jurisdictions, we're seeing DLT and ICO regulation come into effect.
Yeah.
We're looking at places like Gibraltar and Malta and Zug and, the Philippines. You've seen the regulation in Japan. I mean, it is happening. And I think that in the continuation of this year and next year, we will see more regulatory clarity and probably more of the more prominent regions like the US.
I agree. We've been doing, I think I've buttoned down so many buttons in regulation over recent time. It's not even funny.
Sure.
I think everyone in crypto are deep in regulation right now.
Yeah, I mean, even in Australia, Australia is making grounds in terms of the regulatory front, and we have healthy dialogue with a lot of the regulators around the world to try and help shape regulation that isn't just enforced, but actually makes sense given how new and nascent this asset class is.
Yeah. Let's move on. We'll talk about what's happening with stablecoins right now. What is happening with stablecoins? Seems to be an explosion, a Cambrian explosion of stablecoins right now.
Massive.
Winklevoss twins overnight did announce a fiat-backed US dollar stablecoin, according to the twins, and it's got a FDIC pass-through deposit insurance, which is kind of cool. We also saw the blockchain trust company Paxos.
That was last night, right?
Yeah. They've been given the go-ahead to launch a US-backed stablecoin, which we call the Paxos Standard. Obviously very interesting given Tether's mild amounts of controversy.
Oh, yeah. Mild is putting it lightly, but yes.
Mild amounts of controversy.
Well, you've got reserve
Mild
token.
amounts of controversy. What's your view on stablecoins? Do you think there's too many?
Well, to date we've only really had one, which is Tether. I mean, that is very more mildly controversial. I mean, the lack of transparency around Tether has been what a lot of people in the community have criticised it by. And we do have, we've talked about the Gemini dollar, the Paxos Standard. We've got reserve token. You've got Basis. I mean, there is a lot of stablecoins entering the markets. Again, competition's good. Transparency is good. Having options is good. I mean, so again, it'll be interesting to look back in 12 months and see how many of them have survived. I mean, it's like anything, right? I mean, yeah. In summary, competition's good. I'm looking forward to seeing what they have to offer.
Who's the stablest of stables?
Correct.
Why does Tether go up and down?
I mean, Tether in itself, I mean, it's probably best for our viewers to actually do some research on Tether. That would probably be, it's pretty easy reason to find out.
It's like Dogecoin to me. It's like an anomaly of unstableness in stableness.
For sure.
Some are more equal than others.
It will be interesting when we're exchanging stablecoins for stablecoins, huh?
Stablecoins for stablecoins. In other news right now, Shapeshift has mandated KYC. What do you think about that? Eric Voyez, he has said that creating an account is currently voluntary, but it will become mandatory in the near future.
Yeah.
This has obviously been a bit of an interesting regulatory loophole to some extent with Shapeshift not mandating KYC.
Yeah, I don't think it's a loophole. I think Eric's been always he's one of the originals in the crypto scene, right? So utmost respect for Eric. At the same time, Eric has been he's made his views on privacy and KYC very, very clear, and it was something that Eric has been very strongly vocal about. When the New York bit license came into effect, he was a very strong opponent against the bit license. And as a result, if you reside in New York, you can't even use the Shapeshift service. So I think a lot of people were really surprised when Eric came out and said that there is going to be, optional for now, but in in the coming weeks, looks like they're going to impose mandatory KYC, it was a surprise to a lot of people. And there's a lot of people in the community right now asking, what was the catalyst? Like, is it something that Eric has voluntarily done, or has he been placed in immense pressure by a regulator? I mean, at the end of the day, it's arguable as to whether or not there's pros and cons for being in this business when you are KYCing and not. I think personally, as I've probably alluded to before, I am pro-regulation, I am pro-consumer protection, and I am pro-compliance. So for me, I mean, for anyone to really, flourish and last in this environment, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, these are protocols, and these are things that you need to take very seriously.
We'll bring up the quote for us, Joel. Eric's a little bit, he has mixed emotions. We would prefer if the collection of personal information was not a mandatory element. Mm-hmm. We still firmly believe that individuals, regardless of their race, religion, or nationality, deserve the right to financial privacy, just as they deserve the right to privacy in their thoughts, in their relationships, and in their communities. Do you think this criticism of Eric right now is warranted?
I don't know whether I don't know if I'd say whether it's warranted. I think it came as a surprise, given Eric's historical stance on very strong stance on things around privacy. I think it became more of a I'm sure there's a lot of people out there criticizing him, but at the end of the day, Eric's he's provided a lot to this asset class, to this ecosystem. So it's probably a little bit unfair to judge, given that we don't know the full story yet.
Fair play all around. Moving on, before we go, just to keep you guys heads in the game, obviously do your own research with all these markets, but we've got Charles Hoskin, the man himself, a video updating udices on the progress of Cardano. Do you want to roll that for us, Joel?
But at the end of the day, remember that these are short-term blips in a broader, longer time horizon. The reality is that if this technology is good, it's better 5 years from now than it is today. And if it's going to be useful and change people's lives, if you change billions of people's lives, you have a big environment. You have a very big ecosystem. And that's what we're going for, and that's what we're trying to do, and frankly, a lot of people in the cryptocurrency space are trying to do.
Thanks very much, Charlie, my boy. My boy. Dave, we're going to finish it up here. People can catch you on Twitter.
They can. Not the most active person on Twitter, but I'll try and improve that, Fred.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. Share with Twitter. Not that I'm the most tweetery person, but I do my absolute best that I can with the time that I have. Bitcoin trading at $6,355, Ethereum at $197, EOS at $5.07. Bitcoin Cash at $478, Litecoin at $54. Cardano, after Charlie Boy on there saying is trading currently at 7 cents, down 5%. Don't think the market really appreciated his update too much.
5%, come on, in this market, that's not a big move.
Not a big move. Thanks very much for welcoming, obviously, Dave. Do subscribe to our channel, guys. And that is the Daily Exchange. Yeah!